Hi there, my name is Pat Fader and I will be your instructor for itnet 110. It's our Windows 10 client operating system course. Hey, I'm sorry I can't make the first class, so I just wanted to record a lecture or basically cover what I would cover in a face-to-face class. I wanted to create a screencast of that. So the goal right now is to go through the syllabus with you, look at the first couple assignments, and just give you an idea of how grades will be calculated this semester. A quick intro about myself. I've been teaching at MATC for about 20 years. I cannot believe how quickly time flies. I'm currently the department chair. I've taught a lot of different IT courses. I actually taught some programming classes when I first started. I taught some of our Cisco classes, and I created things like the A Plus class. I created our VMware class. I just recently created a PowerShell class. I've taught in a lot of different areas, and I've really enjoyed it. The thing about IT is it never stops. So there's always something to learn, and as a teacher, it's fun because there's always something new you can learn and hopefully make your students more marketable. So with that, let's just what else about myself? I'm sure you'll learn about me throughout the semester. But I'm married. I have 3 kids. The youngest is in high school as a senior. So what little hair I have left will probably fall out this semester or this year, right? For hobbies, I like all kinds of stuff: outdoor stuff, hiking, biking, motorcycling, indoor things. I love building. Like, is a hobby. Like, I built a couple arcade systems using these Raspberry Pis. I'm sure I'll show you some of those this semester, and various projects as well. In college, I actually built an electronic bartender, so that was kind of the highlight of my college education. I built an electronic bartender, and that was kind of a fun project actually. So enough. Let's just get rolling on this. With any class, face to face or online, make sure that you always read all the announcements in Blackboard. So basically, this is saying, hey, there's no class on the 26th, but you need to still complete assignment number 1 before September 9th. That's our next face to face course. The other assignment says welcome, and it lets you know what we will be using this semester for a book. And basically, we'll be using a product from TestOut called this Windows Client Pro. So if you haven't if you haven't had any courses that have used a TestOut product, they're really pretty cool. And I think I just might show you it real quick. Let me just go to TestOut and log in real quick here. All right, so TestOut kind of gives me everything, a lot of what they sell. But for our class, we will be using their Client Pro product. And what I want to point out with their product is that it consists of, it's 11 chapters. And that was my phone. What do we have going on here? My brother. Anyways, the test out products will cover all 11 chapters this semester, and each chapter consists of like 4 or 5 different things. You'll see that there's a lecture. So the author kind of goes through and just talks about something. No demonstration.
32 and 64.
It's more just from academic perspective. He's just covering some content. So you'll be doing that. There's just some fact sheets that you can read. The content on the fact sheets is different than what you find in the videos, so you have to make sure to do that. There's some demonstrations, so he's he's showing you how to manage some devices with a device manager. Probably a Windows 10 computer.
In this demonstration, we're going to talk about managing devices and the drivers that run those devices on a Windows system.
Quick trick, quick tip. What I always do is
For information about a device,
I always jack up the playback speed because he talks way too slow.
Properties interface, you can do a lot of things and view a lot of information.
All right, so you've got all of these first things actually have no effect on your grade. What I base your lab sim grade on this semester is the simulations, and you'll think you'll think that you're working on an actual computer, but it's just really a simulation. So they did a really good job of simulating Windows 10. They give you a scenario, you have to do it, and once you've kind of gone through and done whatever you're supposed to do with this, I don't know, I have no idea. I'm not going to take the time to do it now, but once you've done it, whatever it is, you hit the done button, you get graded. And in this case, it says you failed miserably. What you should have done is this. Just go back and redo it. Basically, I look at your highest score. So I look at your last score. So whatever the last score was, that counts as your test, as your score in that activity. So your grade is based on all the simulations. There's like 70 of them this semester out of this product, as well as the quizzes. They call them practice questions at the end of each chapter, right? At the end of each section, I guess. So section 2.1 has a quiz, section 2.2, 2.3 has a quiz, and so on, as well as simulations. So at the very least, what do you have to do? Every simulation and every quiz. Some students, I know you'll benefit from it. It's really just, I'd encourage you to go through and just do everything. But again, if you're looking from a grading perspective, simulations and quizzes. Okay? Let's go back. So that's test out. As far as buying it goes, you can buy it. It's all web-based. So if you go to the bookstore, they just simply give you a product key you're going to type in. Or if you want to, you can just basically, let's look at their courses here. Client Pro. You just find the Client Pro. There it is. Purchase it. I've already entered my there's actually a you'll see that it's $100 basically. It's like 120 or 140 in our bookstore. It's normally more, but in our Blackboard site, normally what pops up is a price code window, and if you just click on this link here, purchasing Lab Sims directly from Test Out, there's a product code that you can enter, and when you enter that product code in, that drops the price down to about $100. Okay, so that's that. So we're going to use the Test Out product. That's the book that we'll be using this semester. So I got all that just from reading the first two announcements in Blackboard. Let's take a quick peek at the syllabus. All right, so this is, again, my assumption is you're going to read this, and we'll talk about this in class as well. If you have any questions, just say it. We'll just talk about them the next time we get together, or email me. I've got my contact information here. I've got a little bit of information about the course, and the textbook is just a product from Test Out that I already mentioned. As far as supplies goes, really I would almost say there aren't any supplies necessary because we have a computer in class that we can use for your activities. But at least for doing Test Out, you don't need much of a high-end computer. You just need basically a machine that can go online because everything is simulated. So it's just purely just pretty much just a web page you're going to for doing the curriculum. Okay. I've laid out the entire semester here. So I teach a lot of online classes, and I do the same thing for my online classes. I pretty much lay out each week what you're working on. So week 1, the week of 8/26, while I'm not there, you're still going to be working on assignment number 1. We'll talk about that. And assignment number 1 is due on September 9th. All right. Come back the second week of class, September 9th, and we're going to talk about Lab Sim Module 1. So we're going to talk about the content that you would find. And I already lose my Test Out content here. Yeah. I have to log in again. But basically, we're going to talk about everything from Chapter 1 of in the Client Pro product. A lot of clicking going on here. So we will talk about on September 9th, Chapter 1. All right. I want to point out, this just triggered something, but I see something about Active Directory. They do cover some concepts in here that belong in more advanced courses. We actually requested that they would cover some server-based topics in here, and I'm glad that they do, but don't get overwhelmed with it. Really, I look at section 1.4 and I kind of cringe a little bit. They talk about having you do some things in Active Directory. This is all stuff that we're going to cover in Server 1, itnet 112. So again, some things might be a bit overwhelming. Just take it for what it's worth. Just be exposed to the content, and it'll make the next course that much easier. Okay. And so basically on week 2, when we cover Chapter 1, that means by the following week, September 16th, the expectation is that you're going to have Chapter 1 done. All right, so week 3 is kind of interesting. So in week 3, I'm not even sure why I have this like this here. Get rid of that. So in week 3, we're going to work on assignment number 2. I think I'm already getting ahead of myself. And Okay. Sorry about this. I was just kind of reading here. So basically, so when we cover, I have to talk about assignment number 2 now, even though I haven't finished talking about the stupid lab sim in the syllabus. But if I look at week 4, we're going to start covering chapter 2, and you're going to have it all done by 10/7. All right. So looks like 2 or 3 weeks to get through chapter 2, and I pretty much have everything. Chapter 3 we have 1 week, so we talk about it on 10/7. And it's due a week later, 10/14, chapter 3 from your test out product. Okay? So the takeaway so far is Pat's rambling, first one. The second one is that you are going to have to complete the entire lab sim product this semester, and I have laid out in this syllabus exactly when you're doing it. As long as we're looking at this class calendar here, I can talk about a few more things. We can look at assignment 1, we can look at assignment number 2, and we can even talk about the student demos. So in that order, assignment 1. You're probably doing assignment number 1 now because you're watching the screencast, but in assignment number 1, it's just a large to-do list. You're just kind of marching through, do this, watch this video, do this, watch this video. You go through all these different screencasts, and at the very end, section 7, you post something into a discussion board, basically your name, your degree, career information, and I guess there's a few more things you have to do in here. But that's, assignment 1 is just basically me exposing you to a bunch of different technologies and then verifying that you've kind of done this content here. I think a thing that throws students off, one is if you haven't used Test Out before, you are going to have to get the product. No matter what, you have to get the product, but then you're going to have to create an account potentially and then enroll in my Test Out course. And I've got information on it. If you have a problem with it, we'll just cover it in class when we get together again. But by you doing this like step 7, section 7, step E, what you're doing is you are creating an account in Test Out, linking the Client Pro product to that account, and then joining my itnet 110 Fader course in Test Out. Basically, that allows me to check your progress throughout the semester without you having to email me something. I can just kind of go online and check your progress. All right, so that's it's quite a lot of things to do, but it's good. It'll definitely, by the time we get together in our second meeting, we'll be able to hit the ground running. So that's assignment number 1. Again, it culminates with you posting something in a discussion board in Blackboard, basically answering these questions, which would prove to me that you have gone through and done assignment number 1. Okay? Okay, that's assignment 1. Let me close that out. Assignment number 2, and we saw in the syllabus that assignment 2, we're going to spend an entire week on that on September 16th, but what is it? I think it's just kind of a cool activity. And here I have the potential to completely get sidelined on this, so I'll try to control myself. We're going to work on this lab where by the end of class, you're going to have 2 virtual machines running that can talk to each other. And these virtual machines will be running the Windows 10 operating system. So far you might be saying, what the heck's a virtual machine, Pat? And essentially, there's a product called VMware Workstation or VMware Fusion. You use Fusion if you're on a Mac. You use Workstation if you're on a Windows-based computer. I have a Mac right now, so on my Mac, I have run all kinds of different virtualized operating systems. Everything from Ubuntu, which is a Linux-based computer, to Server 2012, Windows 7, Windows 10. I've created all these virtual machines at some point in time. But let me just open one that I've recently run. Let's see, Server 2016. Here we go. Okay, so I'm on a Mac right now, and you can kind of tell with this, it's starting up, but basically I have a Windows Server 2016 operating system running on this Mac. So in this window here, this OS thinks it's running on some physical hardware. It's not. It's being virtualized. It's a virtual machine, so that it's running on virtual hardware. My Mac laptop is faking out this OS, and it's actually running in a window on my computer. So it's pretty amazing. Running a Mac, and then in that Mac, I'm running a copy of Windows Server 2016, and assuming my Mac is powerful enough, I could run 2 or 3 other virtual machines at one time if I wanted to as well. So that's, I think, amazing. So that's a virtual machine. anyways, what you're going to do in that second assignment is create two or use two virtual machines that I have preloaded on our desktop computers in class, and you'll do basically at the end you'll have the two VMs running and they'll be able to ping each other. Not too exciting, but then you're going to use those VMs, those virtual machines, all semester long to do different hands-on labs as well as your midterm. So that's assignment number 2, getting you exposed to virtual machines. Again, if you don't understand this right now, don't worry about it. This is just the first day of class basically, and I've just talked for a few seconds on it. We're going to spend an entire class doing this lab together. So that's the second assignment. Let's go back to the syllabus. So far I've talked about the first assignment. I've talked about the course calendar. I've talked about the second assignment. Student demos. So here's the deal. On September 23rd, I'm going to start talking about Chapter 2 from Test Out. And before class, even before I start talking, 3 students are going to get up and they're going to talk about something from Chapter 2. So I will eventually add your names to the syllabus here. And every student's going to be assigned one presentation. And your goal or your assignment will be to pick something out of the chapter I assigned to you and just do a quick demo on it. So for example, if you find your name right here, you're going to have to work ahead, look at Chapter 2, pick something out in it, anything you want, and just talk about it and show it to the class. Good? So the idea here is it's really fun to have students look ahead and find something that interests them and then present that to the class. So it's just a way to kind of get the class going, get started. And then once we've done that, then I will actually lecture on Chapter 2. It's a little odd because I actually spent 2 weeks talking on Chapter 2, so it looks like we'll have about 6 students giving demos from the content in Chapter 2. Okay, so far we've talked about the lab sim, we've talked about the assignments, assignment 1 and 2, we've talked about the demos. The last thing is I do have these labs highlighted. You are going to use the virtual machines that you learned about in assignment 2 to do about a half dozen labs this semester. I wrote these labs and they're not perfect, all right? So let's just get that straight right now. I put them together and my goal was to have them reinforce what you're learning in Test Out. So, again, I just picked some topics that I thought were interesting and I just created a lab on it and then you'll do it in class. Now, if you want to work ahead, you could do them whenever you want to, assuming you have some virtual machines to do them on. And we'll talk more about the VMs later, but I'll show you how to make copies of ours if you want to. At the beginning of my labs, I actually even created a screencast of me walking through them. So it's kind of cool. So I wrote the lab, I went through and I did it, and I narrated it to tell you what you should be learning. And then if you want to, you can go through and do the lab and reinforce the content on your own as well. So those are my labs, something extra. So in addition to the labs, which actually they don't make up any part of your grade, they're just kind of there to reinforce material. But let's just take a look at the grading here. I've talked about the lab sims. You're doing the whole lab sim product, chapters 1 through 11, and you're doing the quizzes and the hands-on simulations. I've talked about assignments 1 and 2. I've talked about the student demo. All that leaves now is a final exam and the midterm. All right, so the final exam is actually built into your Test Out product. And if I just go here, back in the Test Out and Client Pro Practice Exam, A10 Client Pro Practice Certification Exam, here it is. It's 2 hours long, 18 questions, and you can take it as many times as you want. Your highest score counts, and that's your final exam. In addition to that, as an alternative to this, you could decide instead to take the certification exam that Test Out created for this product. You get 1 free take on it. And if you pass that certification exam, it's an automatic A. I taught a class of 16 students this semester. I think 14 of them passed the certification exam, or 13 passed the certification exam. So and a couple of those students had kind of blown off some of my other activities, but again, they got an automatic A once they passed the certification exam. You can use this practice exam here to prepare for the actual certification exam, and that's what they all said. They did this a few times. Total pain. They did it a few times, and after doing that, then they went and took the actual certification exam, And I'll talk more about that in class because we're already covering a lot of content today. All that leaves now is the midterm. All right. So the final exam, actually, I even have it noted here in the course calendar. You can take the certification exam or the practice exam. I showed you the practice exam a second ago. The certification exam, I just have to enable that, and I'll turn that on sometime in early December for students that want to start taking it. And all that leaves then is a hands-on midterm. It's essentially, we use 2 virtual machines that you've been working with all semester, getting familiar with them, and then the midterm is the big old to-do list, a whole bunch of stuff you have to do, and take a screenshot proving to me that you did those activities. So don't worry about it now, right? This is like October, November time frame, so we'll talk more about the midterm then. But anyways, this is how I calculate your grades. Okay? All right. I've got more information on the practice exam and the certification exam in here. So anyways, let's go back to see where we're at. So far I've gone through the syllabus. I've talked about the assignments and how I'm calculating your final grades. I kind of freaked you out probably talking about virtual machines. Don't worry about it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, this is a face-to-face class. Once we get together, we're going to review all this content again, or as we come across it, I'll make sure that you understand it. So do not feel overwhelmed. Don't rethink your whole career plans after this one screencast. Again, there's a lot of material in itnet 110, and the way I teach typically is I like to give students a whole bunch of content to work on. So we've got the whole test out product. We've got my hands-on midterm, which I wrote. We've got those labs, which I wrote. And then we have the certification exam, which I just encourage you to take. And I think if you do all that kind of content, you're really going to learn the material here in class. Awesome. So anyways, that's the syllabus. Let's see what else I can talk about for a few minutes here. So I've talked about assignment 1. We've talked about assignment 2. I've told you that the lab sims, you have to do all of those this semester. And I pretty much said that you need to do all of the hands-on activities and the practice questions. So I kind of put little arrows here by the simulations as well as the practice questions, just to show you kind of what the expectation is. And I think I told there's like 70 or 80 of these, or maybe 100 of these total all semester if you add up the quizzes and the simulations. All right, the student demo, I briefly mentioned, more on that later. And there you go. So now you're thinking, what do I do next? So if you're watching the screencast, what you're going to want to do is finish all of assignment number 1. And then once you've done it, why is my internet slow today? Once you've completed assignment number 1, you are going to go into our discussion board in Blackboard, and you are going to post responses to the following, letters A through H. So you're going to do all this stuff above, then answer these questions and post your response to those in our discussion board. Good. And where's the discussion board? It looks like it's right here. There we go. And I have to clean it. Oh, I better talk quick. My Mac's almost out of battery. Okay, so you'll post your response under assignment number 1 here. Just plug my laptop in. But anyway, so I've covered the assignments, the course expectations. You're going to do assignment number 1 before we meet again, so before September 9th. If you're saying, Pat, that's not enough, I'm getting bored, that's fine. Just start turning the crank and get working on test out. You're going to have to complete chapters 1 through 11 out of your test out product. So once you finish assignment number 1, if you want to just jump in and start working on the test out product, go for it. We're going to cover the whole thing this semester. So if you've got the time now, get an early jump on it. My syllabus does lay out again kind of how fast I think you should be able to get through it. Some weeks are going to be pretty busy and others not so much. So working ahead wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay. Thank you again for taking the time to watch this screencast. I hope it was helpful. Assignment number 1, you could, again, just kind of takes you by the hand and walks you through a lot of what we've just been discussing here. And looking forward to seeing you on September 9th. Any questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, we'll just talk then. Thanks again, and have a great day.